Okay. Hey YouTube, today's going to be a very brief kind of check-in vlog and where this vlog is going, what I see this channel becoming, and kind of just some thoughts on the channel in general. I'm going to talk about the KTM and just what you can expect essentially in 2025 from my channel. First of all, a couple of people mentioned in the last vlog, they said, you know, I was waiting to see the bike. And then I realized afterwards that I hadn't really shown the bike itself. So first of all, here's the bike, the KTM EXC 450. It's a 2016 model, used as it should be. And I absolutely love that about it. You find loads of small trinkets on it from previous owners. You find good and bad things, obviously, but it's all part of the fun for me. I just personally really enjoy having a used and slightly older, simpler bike. And simplicity is a big thing for me. It's a single cylinder thumper. It sounds incredible, and obviously on the road you can really feel the vibes. But I quite like that. I personally quite like the discomfort. The TF motor was super comfortable, but I almost felt like an old man riding it sometimes. I didn't feel like a 31-year-old guy on that bike. I felt a bit like, oh, you know, it's just nice and comfortable with a big screen on it, and it's just, you know, I quite like the discomfort, and the seat on this is actually fine. I can spend a few hours on this sat down and still be comfortable, so I have got no complaints about this. Maintenance is super simple on these things. You rip the fairings off, rip the plastics off, tank comes off super easy as well, and all you have is this very simple setup. You can pretty much maintain and keep this bike healthy. Super simple, and that's so much fun for me. It's just very easily done, and you can just learn a lot from having a bike like this. There's barely any electronics on it. I love that too. Makes it super simple, very straightforward to work on. I mean, I wouldn't attempt like a engine rebuild, but everything else for now is super easy. I'd like to learn about that more, but when you're spending a lot of money on a bike, I'd much rather have someone that's trained doing that for the time being. Anyway, that's the bike thus far. I've done some checks on it today because this weekend we're heading out to Wales for 3 days on the trails. A couple of checks, had a bit of an issue with the back brake. I think it had some oil on the discs, so I've taken the pads out, cleaned those off, and now it's working absolutely great. What else do we have going on? The back wheel wasn't quite aligned, so I've adjusted that. Adjusted the chain at the same time. Generally cleaned out everything behind here roughly for now, because it's just caked in crap, and kind of, you know, cleaned off all the cables and whatnot and made sure they're all looking good. Taken the horn off because it was hanging down. I need to replace that at some point, but otherwise this thing's ready to go. I think Stuart's already replaced, by looking at it, the air filter looks brand new. Replaced the oil and the filter just before I bought it, so we're pretty much ready to go. The only thing I plan to really do moving forward with this thing is when I get back from Wales, have a top end rebuild done, because I think it's due for one. I've had many different opinions on when that's due and when people get theirs done. I'm going to listen to my gut and get it done when I feel is right. But my dad did make a really good point to me the other day, and I said to him, you know, I'm looking at doing some longer distances on this thing, which, by the way, it's kind of set up for. It's got a bigger tank, 13.5 litres. I've got some tow over bags coming. I'm going to try and put a little screen on the front of it. You know, I think it'll be great. I know people will disagree with that and have different thoughts on that, but we're going to give it a go, and I think it'll be a great challenge, and I think it'll be fun to watch, if nothing else. But my dad said to me earlier on, back in the 70s, we used to get bikes and we would just get on it and ride it and have a good time, and if anything broke, we would get it fixed, but normally nothing went wrong. And you know what? I do agree with that statement to a big extent. I think that we buy them to have fun on. You shouldn't spend too much time worrying about every single little thing. It's impossible to keep on top of everything all the time. But you know, we also buy these things because we enjoy maintaining them. We buy these things because we like to fiddle with them and play around with them, you know. And that's kind of one thing that I do love about this being pre-owned, is you find many little things on there which wouldn't have been there from new, you know, and they're just things that previous owners have added or taken off. And yeah, there's sometimes good things, sometimes bad things. But in terms of rebuilding the top end, I just feel like it's due that. And if you maintain these things, and you know, it's not a regular thing getting it rebuilt, I just think it's going to last you a lot longer. Obviously the basic stuff like oil changes and filter changes, yes, keep on top of that frequently, but the bigger stuff, I think It won't need as many services as if I was going to go and race it, obviously. I'm not red lighting it all the time and holding it there, but it's definitely due a bit of care and attention before riding it any long distances. So that's kind of the bike for now. I'm absolutely loving it. This thing is funny. The CF Moto being around 200 kilos roughly, the Honda CRF being around 160-ish, and then this being around 110, you notice those increments dramatically, let me tell you. And getting used to the CF Moto, coming from stuff like this my whole life, off-road, was definitely an experience. I got on the Honda and absolutely loved that. Being on this, wow. I'm just saying that I cannot wait to really take this thing to a proper track, an enduro track, and just let it rip, because this thing will float over pretty much anything. If you lose it, you just get it back up, no problem. If it's going off track or stuck in a rut, it just blitzes over it, no issue. You know, it's just, oh man, I'm having such a good time on this bike, which is kind of the reason why I said in the previous vlog, comparing the CF Moto to the Honda CRF, which is kind of an insane comparison to do, but I did it because, you know, I first of all had that question and many other people do. But it's just an obvious thing which I said is, if you want to learn to ride trails, definitely get yourselves a bike as light as this. Maybe not as powerful if you're just starting out, but you will just have such a fun time. If you try and throw that CF Moto over the trails and you've never done it before, you're going to have a bit of a nightmare, trust me. Trust me. It's a heavy old bike and it's all over the place and you don't want to keep picking that thing up. Anyway, I did a very short on YouTube of me and Bruce out on the trails the other day. I'm not going to make a full vlog of it because it's more just to show Bruce around, show him some technique, and we just went up and down the same trails a fair bit, getting him used to riding on sludge, riding through ruts, trying to get him standing up and getting the body position right at the same time, basically building confidence. But there is a short, you can go and check that out. There's a bit of riding on this. But the next kind of full video of me riding this thing around and experiencing it will be in Wales this coming Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm not going to ride this thing to Wales. I'm going to get a van just because there's some stuff that I want to get done on it before riding it that far. But once we're back and we've had the servicing done and I've thoroughly checked this thing over, I do intend to ride this thing on bigger journeys. So let's quickly talk about where this vlog's going. A couple of people have mentioned, you know, very politely that what I'm doing now isn't really of interest, and I totally get that, absolutely fair, but it got me thinking about where this vlog began and now what it's become and where it's going to go back to, I guess. It started with me riding around Europe, talking about my thoughts and feelings, solo traveling from London to Bosnia and then back on a Royal Enfield. And it was never really about the bike. The bike gave me the means to go and do this trip, which, you know, my passion is bikes. But it gave me the means to go and do this trip, and it's just been a dream of mine for a long time. So it's never really been about the bike. Well, to carry on with that conversation, obviously it started there and now it's kind of become this carnage on the trails, which I totally get. It's a very different thing. But it's never really been about the bike. The bike's given me the means to do things, and I do talk about the bikes. I think it's nice to hear people's thoughts on bikes and their opinions and whatnot. But yeah, it's never really been about this. It's been about doing the things that I love and sharing them and just talking about it on the way, which is to say the traveling will come back, the touring will come back. If not on this thing, I'll get a different bike later down the line when summer rolls around. But the reason why I'm not doing the traveling stuff so much and the kind of riding long distances right now is because of the weather. It's wet every day, it's icy every day, it's freezing cold. It's just not what I enjoy doing in the winter. And I don't particularly fancy riding anywhere really, and then getting there in the freezing cold and having to kind of explore it in the cold as well. It's kind of more of a, you know, later down the line thing, or going further abroad somewhere warm. So that's the reason why the traveling's taken a back step right now. And it was either kind of a question of letting the vlog go dormant or just carrying on putting stuff that I enjoy on here, which is what I'm doing right now, you know. But all of that will come back. I think obviously this weekend we're going to Wales, and I will continue with Stuart doing the mini series and also filming loads of the trails around Wales, which I cannot wait to do on this bike, obviously. Beyond that, me and Bruce are looking at doing some of the French Tête and perhaps beyond towards the Alps as well. So that'll be some longer distance stuff, hopefully on this. I'll be doing some modifications to this bike and adapting it more for longer trail riding, as you already know, and I've mentioned that already. Later in the year, hopefully Spain with Stuart and parts of Portugal and a couple of other guys, and just generally some bits in between. There'll be obviously constant stuff going on around the UK and me traveling around the UK, and the traveling will return. Then eventually later down the line, we're currently in conversations about Norway, Iceland and Sweden. And that will be on obviously much more of an adventure bike. That's quite a long distance to travel, and that will be with Matthias, who you would have met if you see my previous vlogs from the beginning around Europe. We met Matthias in Austria, which is where he lives, and he's a very good friend of mine, and we've been riding together for years. So there's loads to come, but it's just kind of all over the place right now, and I'm just filming it and having a good time and sharing my experiences. So that's kind of the vlog. And I hope that kind of sums it all up, what you can expect. Any questions for me or for Simon or Stuart. Any questions for Stuart or me, throw them over. Anything you want to see, let me know. The next time I'll see you, I'm sure it's going to be in Wales now. And I'll do an update on that when I get back sometime next week. Very exciting. And thank you for staying tuned. And a quick plug, by the way, if you watch a lot of my videos and haven't subscribed, please do smack that button. And also, the Discord page is going really well. Discord is basically like an online forum. I set it up so we can continue these conversations we have here, but in a easier manner, because YouTube's a bit of a nightmare for the community section to keep up with. And you can sign up to that. It's free. There's great conversations on there, and it just means that we can keep in the loop. We can organize events. It's somewhere we can carry on the conversation away from YouTube. So if you're interested, I will leave that link down below, and come along and join up and introduce yourself, and let's have a conversation. Anyway, I'll see you next week.